I heard him laugh, that smug, self-satisfied chuckle echoing off the bathroom tiles as I tried to muffle my sobs. "Look at him now," Martin Grayson, my wife's shark of a lawyer, said to someone outside. "Big man, builder of his precious house, crying like a child in a courthouse bathroom stall. Pathetic." I pressed my fist against my mouth until I tasted blood, but it didn't matter. They already knew I was broken. 3 hours earlier, I'd watched Susan smile, actually smile, as Judge Harmon awarded her the home I'd built with my own 2 hands. 30 years of marriage dissolved in 90 minutes of legal proceedings. Our wedding photos, my workshop in the garage, the height marks of our children penciled on the kitchen door frame, all gone with the bang of a gavel. I'm Richard Coleman, 58 years old, and until today, I was a respected high school woodshop teacher with a modest home and what I thought was a stable marriage. Now I'm just another middle-aged man whose wife traded up for an old flame she reconnected with on Facebook, leaving me to start over with nothing but a suitcase of clothes and my dignity in tatters. When the judge announced his decision, Susan wouldn't even look at me, just whispered something to her attorney, that smug bastard Martin Grayson. He glanced my way, his $5,000 suit perfectly pressed, his smile predatory. I'd seen that look before, the same look the popular kids gave the outcast in my classroom. Pure contempt. I managed to keep it together in the courtroom, nodded at the judge like this was all reasonable, pretended my hands weren't shaking as I signed the papers, maintained the illusion that I wasn't being gutted alive as they discussed my home, the one I'd spent 15 summers building, expanding, and perfecting, like it was just another asset to divide. It wasn't until everyone started filtering out that I felt the walls closing in. My chest tightened, my vision tunneled. I barely made it to the bathroom before the first sob escaped, painful and raw like it was being torn from my chest. That's when I heard them come in, Grayson and someone else. I froze, breath held, sitting fully clothed on a toilet seat, feet pulled up so they wouldn't see anyone was there. "Did you see his face?" Grayson laughed. "When you mentioned we'd be listing the property immediately? Looked like someone shot his dog." "Pretty rough?" Another voice responded, hesitant. "Guy lost everything. Please. He's lucky we didn't go after his pension." Susan could have pushed for that too, but she's being merciful. I could hear the air quotes in his voice. Besides, this is what happens when you marry out of your league. Susan was always too good for him. The worst part wasn't what they said. It was knowing they were right. Susan had been the popular girl who inexplicably fell for the shy shop teacher. For 3 decades, I'd felt like I'd won the lottery. Now I understood. I'd just been a placeholder until something better came along. They finally left, and I sat there, crushed under the weight of humiliation. But as I stared at my reflection in the stainless steel divider, something strange happened. Behind the red eyes and tear-streaked face, I saw a flicker of something I hadn't felt in months. Anger. What Grayson and Susan didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had kept meticulous records of everything over the years, including the mysterious cash deposits Susan had been making into an account I wasn't supposed to know about, and the emails I'd accidentally discovered between her and Grayson that predated our separation by almost a year. They thought they'd seen the last of me, that I'd slink away, defeated, but they were wrong, dead wrong. What happened next would prove that sometimes the man crying alone in a bathroom stall is the most dangerous man of all. I left the courthouse that afternoon with nothing but a duffel bag of clothes, the metallic taste of humiliation still fresh in my mouth. As I drove to the cheap motel I'd booked, the only place I could afford while Susan and her lawyer prepared to sell the home that had been my life's work, I kept hearing Grayson's laughter echoing in my head. My fingers gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. 30 years. 30 years of waking up early to drive to school, teaching teenagers how to build something with their hands while Susan pursued her real estate career. 30 years of coming home on summer breaks to add the sunroom she wanted, to build the custom kitchen cabinets she'd admired in a magazine, to create the garden pergola where we'd hosted our daughter's engagement party. All of it gone. And they laughed. The motel room smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at nothing when my phone buzzed. A text message from my daughter, Emily. "Dad, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" I couldn't bring myself to answer. What would I say? That her mother had taken everything? That I was a broken old man in a motel room contemplating the ruins of his life? No. Emily had her own family now, her own problems. The last thing I wanted was to burden her with mine. Instead, I pulled out a worn leather-bound notebook from my bag. For years, I'd kept track of all our finances, all our accounts, a habit from the early days when money was tight. Susan had always made fun of my meticulous record-keeping. "You're so old-fashioned," she'd say, rolling her eyes. "Everything's digital now, Richard." But I kept at it, and thank God I did. I flipped through the pages until I found what I was looking for. 6 months before Susan asked for a divorce, she'd started making large cash deposits into an account I wasn't supposed to know about. Money that wasn't accounted for in our divorce proceedings. Money that, by law, was partially mine. There was something else, too. Something I hadn't told anyone about, not even my court-appointed attorney who seemed overwhelmed and underprepared against Grayson's calculated precision. 3 weeks before Susan left, I'd borrowed her laptop to order gardening supplies when an email notification popped up. The preview showed a message from Grayson. "All set for next month. He won't know what hit him." Like a fool, I'd assumed it was about a surprise party or gift. Now, sitting in that motel room with the weight of reality crushing me, I understood. They'd been planning this. Planning to blindside me, to take my home, to leave me with nothing. The next morning, I was startled by a knock at my door. When I opened it, I found myself face to face with Jason Merritt, a former student who'd graduated nearly 15 years ago. He'd been one of my best woodworking students, a troubled kid who'd found purpose in creating things with his hands. "Mr. Coleman?" His face registered shock at my appearance. I hadn't shaved, hadn't really slept. "I heard about what happened. My mom's friend works at the courthouse." I almost closed the door. The shame of having my students, even former ones, know about my humiliation was almost too much to bear. "I'm an attorney now," Jason continued quickly. "Family law. And what happened to you? It doesn't add up, Mr. Coleman." The judge's ruling on the house was unusual given Connecticut state laws on property division, especially for assets acquired during marriage. For the first time since I'd heard Grayson's laughter in that bathroom, I felt a flicker of hope. "I don't have money for a lawyer," I said, my voice hoarse from disuse. Jason's expression hardened with determination. "You don't need money. What you need is someone who owes you. And I owe you everything, Mr. Coleman. You're the reason I'm not in prison or dead. You taught me that creating is better than destroying." He paused. "Let me help you fight this." As Jason sat across from me in that dingy motel room, I slowly opened my notebook and started sharing everything I knew. The hidden account, the emails, the way Susan and Grayson had been in contact long before our separation. With each piece of information, Jason's expression grew more confident. "Mr. Coleman," he said finally, "they made a mistake thinking you were a pushover, but they made an even bigger mistake breaking the law to take your home." For the first time in months, I allowed myself to feel something beyond despair. Grayson's mocking laughter still rang in my ears, but now it fueled something else. Resolve. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of legal research and strategic planning. Jason transformed from my former student into a fierce advocate, working tirelessly on my case between his regular clients. We set up shop in his modest office, walls covered with diplomas and family photos, a stark contrast to Grayson's marble and mahogany fortress of a law firm. "They've made at least 3 critical mistakes," Jason explained one evening, spreading documents across his desk. "First, Susan failed to disclose those separate accounts during discovery. That's perjury. Second, her communication with Grayson before filing for divorce suggests potential conspiracy. And third," he looked up, a glint of triumph in his eyes, "I found something in the county records about your house." He pushed a document toward me. The judge awarded Susan the house based partly on her claim that her real estate expertise significantly increased its value. But according to these property assessments, the biggest value jumps came directly after your renovations, which you documented meticulously. I traced my finger over the assessment dates, remembering each project. The kitchen remodel in 2009, the master bath in 2013, the sunroom in 2017. Each one represented hundreds of hours of my life, my sweat, my passion. "This alone might not be enough," Jason cautioned, "but combined with everything else." I nodded, understanding. We were building a case, piece by careful piece. 2 days later, I had my first post-divorce encounter with Susan. I'd gone to what was once our home to collect some personal items the court had permitted me to retrieve. She wasn't supposed to be there. We'd arranged for me to come when she was out, but her car was in the driveway when I arrived. My heart hammered as I knocked on my own front door. When it opened, the woman I'd loved for 3 decades stood before me, looking both irritated and uncomfortable. "You're early," she said flatly. I checked my watch. "Actually, I'm right on time." She sighed dramatically. "Whatever. Just get what you need and go. I have a showing in an hour." A showing. She was already preparing to sell my life's work. I followed her inside, feeling like a stranger in the space I'd created. She'd already begun redecorating. My armchair was gone, replaced by some modern monstrosity. The family photos had vanished. It was as if she were erasing every trace of our life together. "Your tools are in the garage," she said without looking at me. I boxed up what I thought was important. I paused in the hallway, staring at the kitchen door frame where pencil marks had once tracked our children's growth. The marks were gone, covered by fresh paint. "You erased them," I said quietly. Susan glanced over. "We had to. The realtor said it would help with staging." We. She and her lawyer, or she and her new boyfriend. Either way, I was already a ghost in this house. In the garage, my former sanctuary, I found several hastily packed boxes. My tools, many handed down from my father, had been thrown together with little care. Some were missing entirely. "Where's my grandfather's hand plane?" I asked when Susan appeared in the doorway. She shrugged. "No idea. Maybe it got lost in the move." But something in her expression told me otherwise. She was lying, a realization that hit me with unexpected clarity. After 30 years of marriage, I could still read her tells. The slight narrowing of her eyes, the way she touched her collarbone when being dishonest. "It's a family heirloom, Susan." "Well, it's not here," she snapped. "And you need to hurry up. Like I said, I have a showing." As I loaded boxes into my car, I noticed a sleek black BMW pulling into the driveway. Martin Grayson emerged, his designer suit as immaculate as ever, his face darkening when he spotted me. "What's he doing here?" he demanded of Susan, speaking as if I weren't present. "Collecting his things," she replied. "He was just leaving." Grayson turned to me, contempt radiating from every pore. "Make sure that's everything, Coleman. We don't want you coming back with more claims." The way he emphasized claims sent a chill through me. Did he know what Jason and I were working on? I maintained eye contact, refusing to be intimidated. "I always come back for what's rightfully mine, Mr. Grayson." His smirk faltered momentarily before returning with renewed arrogance. Brave words from a man I last saw crying in a bathroom stall. The humiliation burned fresh, but this time I didn't flinch. "You know what they say about men who laugh at others' pain, don't you?" I asked quietly. "What's that?" he scoffed. "They rarely notice their own downfall approaching." I drove away with his mocking laughter following me, but I wasn't broken this time. Every box in my car, every missing tool, every erased memory was fuel for what was coming. That evening, as Jason and I reviewed our evidence, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "My name is Olivia Winters. I was Martin Grayson's paralegal until last month. We need to talk about your case. He's done this before." I showed the message to Jason, whose eyes widened. "This could be the break we need," he whispered. Or a trap," I finished. We sat in silence, weighing our options. Finally, I typed a response. "What exactly has he done before?" The reply came almost immediately. "Conspired with clients before filing. Hidden assets. Bribed court officials. I have proof, but I need protection." Jason and I exchanged looks. If she was telling the truth, this changed everything. If not, "I'm already risking everything," I said. "What's a little more?" I texted back, "Let's meet. Name the place." As I waited for her response, I thought about Susan and Grayson standing in my driveway, so confident in their victory. They had no idea what was coming. The bathroom where I'd once cried seemed like a lifetime ago. Now I was done crying. I was ready to fight. The cafe where Olivia suggested meeting was 30 miles away, in a town where neither Grayson nor Susan would likely recognize us. Jason insisted on coming along, his legal pad ready, his expression grave with the seriousness of what we were undertaking. When she walked in, a petite woman with tired eyes and nervous demeanor, I almost didn't believe this fragile-looking person could be our salvation. But the manila envelope she clutched told a different story. "They'll destroy me if they find out," were her first words as she slid into the booth across from us. "I've already had to move twice." "Why are you helping us?" Jason asked, ever the cautious attorney. Olivia's hands trembled slightly as she placed the envelope on the table. Because what they did to you, Mr. Coleman, they've done to at least 3 others. Elderly clients, divorcees with assets, people who trusted the system. She took a deep breath. I was part of it until I couldn't live with myself anymore. She opened the envelope and slid documents across the table. Martin has an arrangement with Judge Harmon. They golf together, vacation together. The judge's son got into Yale Law thanks to a recommendation from Martin's father. Jason examined each page. This is extensive judicial misconduct. Keep going, Olivia urged. The second set of documents made my breath catch. Bank statements showing transfers from Susan's LLC to an offshore account linked to Grayson, dating back 14 months before our divorce. She was paying him, I whispered, the betrayal cutting fresh. All that time. It's worse, Olivia said quietly. The LLC was funded by liquidating joint assets you didn't know about. Martin advised her how to quietly sell investments you shared without triggering notifications. And there's this, Olivia continued, revealing a final document, an appraisal of our home dated just 3 weeks ago, showing a value nearly double what had been presented in court. They're planning to sell for much more than disclosed during your proceedings, she explained. Martin has a buyer already lined up, a developer who wants the land. They'll split the difference after the sale. As we parted ways, Olivia paused. Mr. Coleman, your grandfather's handplane? I overheard Susan telling Martin it was appraised at over $15,000. She's planning to sell it privately. 2 days later, we were ready. Jason had prepared a motion to vacate the divorce judgment, along with evidence packets for the state attorney's office and the Judicial Ethics Committee. That morning, I received a text from Susan. The house is on the market as of today. Thought you'd want to know. Jason and I arrived at the courthouse early. As we approached the clerk's office, a familiar voice called out, Coleman, what an unfortunate surprise. Martin Grayson approached, his perfect smile firmly in place, though his eyes betrayed curiosity at the sight of Jason and our briefcase. What's this? Finally hired proper counsel? A bit late for that, I'm afraid. Jason stepped forward. Jason Merritt, Mr. Grayson. I believe we're about to become very well acquainted. Grayson's smile faltered. Merritt? Don't know the name. What firm? My own, Jason replied. Small, but effective, particularly in cases involving judicial misconduct and fraud upon the court. The color drained from Grayson's face. His recovery was quick, mask back in place within seconds. Bold accusations from a strip mall lawyer, he sneered. Coleman, whatever this is, it won't change anything. The judgment is final. I stepped closer, close enough to see beads of sweat forming at his hairline. Remember when you laughed at me in that bathroom, Martin? When you thought I was finished? I lowered my voice. I've been looking forward to this moment ever since. Is that a threat? His expression wavered between contempt and uncertainty. No, I said calmly. It's a promise. By the way, tell Susan I want my grandfather's handplane back, today, or that becomes another criminal charge. We walked away, leaving him standing there, finally silent. I heard him frantically dialing his phone as we turned the corner. By afternoon, our motion had been filed. Jason's connections ensured that a different judge, one with no ties to Grayson, would hear our emergency motion the following morning. That evening, there was a knock at my motel room door. When I opened it, I found Susan standing there, looking smaller somehow, my grandfather's handplane clutched in her hands. How did you find me? I asked, not inviting her in. It wasn't hard, she replied, her voice lacking its usual confidence. She held out the plane. I thought you might want this back. As I took it, feeling the familiar weight and smoothness of the wood worn by generations of hands, she spoke again. Richard, whatever you think you're doing, please don't. We can work something out. I studied her face, the face I'd woken up to for 30 years, the face I'd once believed could never lie to me. It's already done, Susan. Fear flickered across her features. You don't understand, Grayson says. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. And tomorrow, so will everyone else. She left without another word, and I closed the door, running my fingers over my grandfather's tool, remembering his words. Measure twice, cut once, and always stand by your work. Tomorrow I would stand by mine. The courtroom seemed smaller than I remembered as I sat beside Jason, waiting for Judge Patricia Woodward to enter. Across the aisle, Grayson looked uncharacteristically disheveled, tie askew, dark circles under his eyes. Susan sat beside him, refusing to meet my gaze, her fingers anxiously shredding a tissue. "I've reviewed the emergency motion and accompanying evidence," Judge Woodward began without preamble. "This is deeply troubling. Mr. Merritt, please proceed." Jason rose, methodical and calm. "Your Honor, we're presenting evidence of extensive fraud upon the court in Coleman versus Coleman. The judgment rendered was based on deliberately falsified financial disclosures, improper communications, and what we believe was judicial bias." "That's preposterous," Grayson interrupted, nearly shouting. "Your Honor, this is a desperate attempt by a disgruntled ex-husband." "Mr. Grayson," Judge Woodward cut in, her voice like steel. "You will have your turn. Until then, control yourself in my courtroom." Jason methodically presented our evidence, including Olivia's sworn affidavit. I watched Susan grow paler with each revelation, her eyes darting between Grayson and the exit. When Jason revealed the hidden accounts and the planned property flip, Judge Woodward removed her glasses. "Mr. Grayson, are you prepared to refute these allegations under oath? Because if even half of this is accurate, we're discussing criminal charges, not civil remedies." Grayson's arrogance finally cracked. "Your Honor, I request a brief recess to confer with my client." "You have 15 minutes, she replied coldly. "And Mr. Grayson, I've instructed my clerk to contact the State Bar and District Attorney. They'll receive copies of these filings today." In the hallway, I stood by a window when Susan approached. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I studied this woman I'd loved for decades, now a stranger. "I'm not doing anything, Susan. You and Grayson did this. I'm just finally standing up. They'll disbar him. I could go to jail." Her voice broke. "Is that what you want? After 30 years together?" "What I wanted," I said slowly, "was the life we built, the home we shared, the truth between us. But you took all that away long before I found out." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "I never meant to." "You never meant for me to find out," I corrected gently. "That's different from never meaning to do it." When we returned, Grayson immediately approached the bench. "Your Honor, my client wishes to propose a settlement, full return of the marital home to Mr. Coleman, plus compensation." "Mr. Grayson," Judge Woodward interrupted, "we're beyond private settlements. This court has evidence of potential criminal activity. I am vacating the previous judgment and referring this matter to proper authorities." She turned to me. "Mr. Coleman, your home will be returned pending final resolution. I'm issuing a restraining order preventing its sale or transfer." That evening, I stood on the porch of my home, my key still working in the lock. Inside, everything looked just as it had the day I left, yet somehow different. The marks measuring our children's growth were still gone from the doorframe. Some things couldn't be undone. In my workshop, I carefully placed my grandfather's handplane back on its shelf. "We're home," I whispered. The next morning brought news that Grayson had been suspended pending investigation, and Susan was cooperating with authorities for leniency. The developer who'd planned to buy our home had withdrawn. 6 months later, as autumn painted the maple trees gold and crimson, I sat on my porch swing, coffee in hand. The house was quieter now, just me, but it was mine. Evidence of my life's work, my integrity. I'd started teaching again and volunteering at a community center, offering workshops for people going through divorce. "Know your rights, know your worth," I told them. Susan had moved to Florida with her boyfriend, the old flame who'd turned out to be just another casualty of her restlessness. Grayson was facing disbarment and criminal charges, but revenge wasn't what filled my days anymore. Instead, I found peace in knowing I hadn't broken when they tried to break me. That moment in the bathroom when Grayson's laughter cut through my soul now seemed like it had happened to someone else. I remembered something my grandfather told me when I was just a boy, learning to use that handplane. "Things break, Richie. Houses crumble. What matters is that you have the tools to rebuild and the courage to start again." I took another sip of coffee and smiled. That courage had always been inside me. It just took losing everything to find it. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and activate notifications so you never miss our new stories. And remember, sometimes the person who seems defeated is the one you should fear the most.